Hi, this is Dr. Cooper, and this is a podcast for the English 102 Freshman Composition course. This is the Week 2 weekly podcast. Okay, so let's start out by saying congratulations to all of you who made it through the orientation week. Hopefully you were able to find out all of the things that you needed to know about the course, and you're still excited about it. So as you know, you are 3 courses in one, 2 online and 1 hybrid course. The hybrid course meets on Tuesday, every Tuesday at 10 o'clock to 11:15. So I want to extend an invitation to all of the online students. If you're struggling and you're considering dropping out, you can always consider joining us in class in the hybrid course. So the only thing that changes is that you'll meet with us in class and you'll get help, not only from me, but from your classmates. Okay, so let's talk about where we're going in Week 2. First off, Week 1 is pretty tough because everything is new. Just like when you learn to drive, it wasn't easy right off the bat. You had to, struggle through, when do I turn? When should I put the blinker on? Do I put it up now? Oh, what do I do? Online courses are the same way, and it can be challenging when we first start out. Week 2 is also going to be challenging, but only because it's still new and we have 2 very important assignments to get us started. But before we get to Week 2, let's do a quick Week 1 recap. Alright, aside from doing the orientation, you had 2 things to work on, a reading assignment and the discussion. Now, the discussion is very important because, as you all know, you are all going to choose a topic for your research project in this class. And the topic is going to have to fall under the general theme of personal freedoms. So in the discussion, you all are discussing lots of different options. So it doesn't mean that what you are talking about currently in the discussion is all that there is to choose from. There are a lot of other topics. So this week, we're going to spend some time exploring some different topics. Okay? The other thing that you were responsible for doing last week is reading. Chapter 15 is in your online handbook in Connect Composition, and it is called Understanding Research. Now, you need to read, and when you read, take notes, because I don't quiz you until the end of a module. So that might be 3-4 weeks from now. The hybrid class, they will get quizzes periodically throughout the semester, so it might be a little easier for them. But for you online students, you won't have a quiz until the end of a module, and you might have forgotten what you've read during that time. So, I'm just going to recap some of the key points from Chapter 15 that you should have made a note of. For instance, reading Chapter 15 online, it talks about primary and secondary research. This is a very important aspect of what we're going to be doing in this class, because most of you are just familiar with maybe searching Google or Yahoo and coming up with some websites and getting information from there. I mean, hey, we all love Wikipedia, right? Especially when we want to find out something quick. But when we're writing an academic research paper, it's more than just that. And we try to avoid some of these more, or some of these basic websites to get information. We do more in-depth research. And that requires using both primary and secondary research. So if you read Chapter 15, you'll discover what primary research is. It also talks about knowing how to identify facts, interpretations, and evaluations. And that is the key to conducting good secondary research. So you want to be aware of that and find out again from the reading in the chapter, what exactly are the facts, interpretations, and evaluations, and why are they important? It also talks about a research question and how if you're going to do a research project, you need to have a research question. And it's different for our project, the research question that they talk about in Chapter 15. For instance, they are talking about and referring to more research reports. But in this class, we're going to be writing an argumentative research paper. So the questions that they give you examples of in the chapter aren't exactly the types of questions that we're going to use. Okay? Your research question should indicate that your paper is an argumentative paper. So in this week, we will be reading a chapter that talks about arguing or writing to convince. And you'll put the information together to help formulate your question. But just to give you an idea, let's say I have a topic, and one of the popular topics that you are talking about in the discussion is gay marriage. Well, if I say gay marriage is my topic, how can I formulate a research question that indicates an argument? So the question would simply be, should same-sex couples be allowed to marry? And the answer should generate a controversy. For instance, if I say, yes, they should. Okay, well, that's one side of the issue. If I step over to the other side, I could say, no, they shouldn't. Okay, so the question being, should they be allowed to marry, is a research question that can be answered that would then generate a position statement that you could write a research paper on. You don't want to answer a question or ask a question that could just be answered with facts, yes or no, or how many people living in the United States, yes, and then you give the number. There's no controversy there. So you want to try to find an issue that's controversial, that's also related to personal freedoms. Okay, so we'll talk more about that later. But back to chapter 15. It also talks about developing a research plan. Well, if you watched the orientation, you saw that your research plan has already been developed for you. And there was a video in the orientation about it. But basically, we have a step-by-step plan where we are going to build our research projects. So as long as you follow the steps and do all of your assignments, you'll be that much closer to completing your project each week that we go through. Okay? Now, there was a list of questions in that chapter that talked about helping to develop your general plan, and I wanted to address some of those questions in case you were curious about them. So once again, I'm in chapter 15. The first one, it says, do I understand exactly what my instructor expects? Well, you may not yet, but you will before you actually start writing your paper. Okay, so right now, all that you know is that, one, we have a theme, a general theme of personal freedoms. You also know that, two, you're going to write an argumentative essay. Okay, and that's it for now. But we will build on that later, and you will know within the next 2 weeks all or exactly what your instructor, that would be me, expects out of this project. Okay, is the purpose of my paper fundamentally informative, interpretive, or persuasive? Well, I've already given that one away. Persuasive writing is argumentative writing, so as long as you understand that your paper is not informative, you're not just going to go out and present a bunch of facts about a topic. We are arguing, we have a point to make, and that's what our goal and our purpose is going to be. Okay? Do you have a choice about that? No. It's already decided. You're going to write an argumentative paper. It's either going to be a position paper or a proposal paper. Okay, next question. Is the topic assigned? No. You're giving a general theme, but you still have to choose your topic. Okay? What do I already know about my topic? We talked about this in class the other day in the hybrid class. And one of the things that I said, I asked a couple of students, I gave them some topics that I thought were interesting topics like net neutrality. And I said, how many of you know what that is? And very few people raised their hands. And then I pointed out a student and I said, would you write about that? And he pretty much said no. And I said, why? Well, I don't know anything about it. Well, that is part of the process of doing research and writing a research paper. Yes, it is good to find the topic that you're interested in. So for instance, I'm interested in net neutrality because I'm big on using social media, teaching online, and I think that this topic might affect me personally. So that would interest me. But do I know a lot about it? No. But I'm going to learn about it. That's why we do research. So don't avoid topics because you don't know anything about it. And the same goes for the other side. Don't choose a topic because you think it's easy. For instance, I've already X'd out certain topics. You can't choose abortion, gun control, the death penalty, euthanasia, okay? Legalization of marijuana. All of these topics have been overdone, and students feel like, oh, I want to do that because it interests me. Really, they want to do it because they've probably done it already in high school. You could probably find 50 million papers on the web already. Why? What's the purpose? There's no purpose in that. So let's pick new topics. Topics that we can learn something from. Topics that affect us today. I don't know about you, but legalizing marijuana does not affect me. Okay? Abortion does not affect me. So that doesn't mean that it won't affect you in any way, but there's nothing new about these topics unless you can find something new and convince me. Alright, if the specific topic is open, What idea generation techniques can be used to help me discover a topic? Ah, good question. I like our textbook. Anyway, there are several things. One, we're already having a discussion where you are sharing ideas with each other. That is the best way to find not only a topic, but other people who are interested in the same topic. But this week is made up of 2 activities that will also help you generate some ideas. For instance, I've given you 2 articles to read. One is on the gun laws in Arizona. That doesn't mean that I want the whole class to write about gun laws. No, it's just an idea that is out there. It's current. It shows you how it's happening to us. It might affect you. And it's just a way to think about personal freedoms. The second one is an article full of different topics. I mean, I assigned the article. It's about 27, 30 pages long, and I'm not expecting that you will read the whole thing. So I want for you to skim through that article and find a section that you think is interesting and read that section. And these are the 2 articles that you're using for assignment number 1. So basically, you're choosing what part of that second article that you want to read. That's the privacy and peril article. Okay? So these are different ways that we're going to generate ideas. The second assignment that you're doing this week is another way of generating ideas for possible topics. Don't go into this assignment number 2, with the idea of what you want to do already. Okay, so let's say, I want to write about gay marriage, or I want to write about net neutrality. Okay, put that aside for now and go out and do this assignment, which is a searching the web assignment and then sharing links with each other. So go out and find out as many different topics that you can come up with. And you're going to share those in a list. So you're going to find 10. The next person in the class is going to find 10. I've already found my 10. But all 63 of you are going to find 10 different articles about personal freedoms issues. It could be 10 different issues. It could be 1 issue, but 10 different articles. It's up to you. But once we share all of that information together, do the math. 63 times 10, 630. That's 630 different resources that we will have come up with in a week. And you're going to look through all of that stuff and find the best topic out there. And once you do, you're going to say, that's the topic I want to write about. Okay? So this week is actually our idea generation week. So that's why it's an important week. All right, back to the questions. Will collaboration be allowed? Of course. Now, it doesn't mean that you can share together and write a paper together. But the process of doing the research and planning and organizing, it's great if you can find someone who has a similar topic that you can work with. You just have to keep in mind that when you write your papers, they need to be different papers. So I've had students in the past write on the same topic. Up to 5 people can write on the same topic, but their papers are completely different. What would really work is if you can find someone who likes the same topic, let's use my gay marriage again, and you can find the person who wants to say yes, they should be allowed to marry, and then you might take the opposite, the opposing view, and say, no, they shouldn't. And then when you work together, it makes a nice balance because you can give them your arguments, they give you your arguments, and then you have opposing views, vice versa. It's a great plan if you can find the person. But it doesn't mean that you have to collaborate. You can always work alone. Okay, another question. Will I need to conduct primary as well as secondary research? Yes, we just talked about that already. And there's even an assignment, I believe it's assignment number 7, where you have to do primary research, and that primary research has to be added to your final paper. All right, how many and what kinds of sources am I expected to consult? That's a good thing to know too. That will pop up later as we go, but each of the assignments that you're going to be working on require you to do research. And each time you go out and do research, you will count those sources as sources that are required in your paper. So for instance, we're going to search the web. Okay, you can have web in your paper. You're required to search books, so you have to have books in your paper. You're required to search databases for periodical articles. You're going to have that in your paper. So basically, you have a minimum requirement, but you have to make sure that you have all of the sources or the different types of sources that we learn to use throughout this semester. So more on that later, but just keep in mind that a minimum of 6, which is very few, I'd say 6 to 10 is a good number to keep in the back of your head when you're doing your research. Okay, what citation style does my instructor want me to use? Well, in this class, because normally we would use MLA because it's an English course, and the English course is part of humanities, and that is the requirement, MLA, Modern Language Association, we would use MLA. But I know a lot of you are going out into the field of sciences, education, nursing, and things like that, and you will be required to use APA. So we learn both. The first half of the class we'll learn MLA, the second half we'll learn APA. And then at the end, for your final project, you get to decide, based on your topic and your needs, which citation style you want to use. So that's a good question. Okay, so those were the questions from Chapter 15 and Understanding Research. And hopefully you took some notes. I sort of pulled out the key things that I would ask on a quiz from that chapter. The second thing that you were asked to read was called Understanding Research as well, but it was a link to a website, Old Dominion University. And they really go through the 8 steps to research that I think are very important to you. Now it says the first 4 steps focus on getting started, and then the last 4 steps focus on gathering information. So right now we are at the getting started stage, but familiarize yourself with those 8 steps because they are important and we will be going through those steps. We may not go through them in the same manner that they have them listed, but we do cover them. Okay? So after we have gone through and talked about different topics and explored more topics, towards the end of this week, you are going to choose a topic and write a research proposal. So I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the research proposal at the end of this podcast. First, I want to go into week 2. So I gave you a recap of week 1, the reading and the discussion. And now for week 2, let me go into my module week 2 folder. Our instructional objectives for this week is that we're going to develop the ability to read critically and summarize content. Now, writing a research paper is all about synthesis. Synthesis, that's a key word. Make sure you understand what that means. We actually have a chapter on synthesis later in the semester. But what a research paper is synthesizing different ideas, not only from other sources, but our own ideas. But we have to keep in mind that the paper is our own, and we have a voice. So we have to establish our own ethos in this paper, and we have to be a part of the paper. Instructors who ask for you to write a paper don't always want for you just to write a report and what I like to call an information dump. You go find all of these different sources and all you're doing is just dumping it into a paper. There's no you in there, it's just all outside sources. That is not what we're doing. So as we go through our process, you will be learning to read critically, looking for key things in the sources that you locate, and then summarizing the material. You're going to summarize it, paraphrase, and even take quotes out of the material. Those summaries, paraphrases, and quotes are what you add to your research paper. Okay? You add that to your own voice. So you take ownership over it. We will also refine strategies of academic research. So we'll first start out by doing basic web search for this assignment number 2 that you're working on. And we're going to learn about social bookmarking and how by sharing all of the things that we do with each other, we can gain with less work. So each of you are going out to find 10 sites. That's pretty easy. You could do that in an hour. But you benefit by having now the availability of 630 sites that have been looked at and evaluated, briefly and then shared. As opposed to just doing a Google search and coming up with 1 million hits on personal freedoms, you've had people who have looked through 10, 10, 10. So there should be good stuff. All right? So those are objectives. The reading, we're going to read Chapter 8, which is in your paper textbook, which is the McGraw-Hill Guide. So read Chapter 8, and it's called Writing to Convince. Now remember, at the end of this week, you have to write a research proposal where you're choosing a topic and telling me, convincing me that this is the topic for you. There's more involved, and we'll talk about it later. But you can't choose a topic if you don't understand what it is that you need to do in the paper. So writing to convince is the chapter 8 in your McGraw-Hill guide that you need to read. All right, online in the McGraw-Hill handbook, you need to read chapter 18, Evaluating Sources, and chapter 21, Working with Sources and Avoiding Plagiarism. Okay, and I point out the sections that you need to read, so only read the sections that are listed. For instance, chapter 18, it says section 18A-C. So there's only 3 sections that you need to read there. Okay? All right, handouts. There's one handout that talks about writing summaries. Some of you might need a refresher on how to summarize content. Go ahead and read that. And then there are 2 handouts that you will need for assignment number 1. That is Arizona's Other Crazy Law, and then Privacy and Peril, which I talked about already. Remember, Privacy and Peril, choose the section that you find interesting in reading. Okay, so our lesson for this week, writing summaries, which is just a web document, so you can read that on your own, learn how to write summaries. That's for assignment number 1. And then there's a lesson in the week 2 folder about annotated bibliographies and using DIGO social bookmarking. Why do we do it? What is it? And so forth. All right, so watch that lesson. And then, of course, we have 2 assignments. Assignment number 1, which I've already talked a little bit about, and assignment number 2. Both of these assignments are due by Sunday at midnight. So make sure that you are aware of that and that you complete them both. All right, so there's only a couple of weeks. There's only 2 weeks where we have 2 assignments in a week. This is it. This is the first one. But, you know, you're just reading and summarizing with assignment number 1. You should be able to do that. You're also learning how to upload your assignments into Connect Composition, but all the help that you need is in that assignment folder. There's videos, screencasts on how to do the assignments, etc. Okay? All right, so let's go back to one of the very important parts of this week and next week.